In the meantime, humanity's leadership began to strategize. They knew that if they were to maintain their independence, they would need to build their own strength, not just in terms of military power, but in political and diplomatic influence as well. The galaxy was a complex web of alliances, and the Viri were not the only power to reckon with. Humanity needed allies of their own. One evening, Dr. Maya, the colony's lead scientist, met with Orin in the command center. "We need to prepare for the worst," she said, her voice low. "If the Viri decide to turn against us, we won't stand a chance without allies. But there are other forces in the galaxy, powers that are not aligned with the Viri. We need to reach out to them." Orin nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. We can't rely solely on the Viri for our survival. We've seen what happens when you put all your faith in one group, one power. It's time we make our own path, and that means building relationships with others. We'll need to be strategic about it." The next step was clear. Humanity would reach out to other alien factions. They didn't need to form full alliances just yet, but they needed to show that they had other options, that they weren't entirely dependent on the Viri. It was a dangerous game, but it was the only way forward. Over the next few weeks, Orin's team worked tirelessly to send diplomatic messages to various factions across the galaxy. They reached out to peaceful species, those that had little interest in conflict but were wary of the Viri's growing influence. They made contact with smaller, independent colonies that had been ignored by the larger powers. And perhaps most importantly, they began forging connections with groups that had once been enemies of the Viri, the very same factions the Viri had crushed in their long history. As these diplomatic efforts took shape, the humans also began strengthening their own military. They had already acquired advanced Viri technology, but they couldn't afford to rely solely on it. Humanity needed to adapt it, to learn how to use it in ways that suited their needs and tactics. They began training their soldiers in new forms of combat, using the Viri's knowledge, but blending it with their own ingenuity. Yet, even as humanity took steps toward independence, the Viri watched them closely. They knew that a powerful human force, one that was not beholden to their will, was a threat to their dominance. But the Viri were too proud to outright challenge humanity. Instead, they waited. They bided their time, knowing that one day the humans would either come to accept their place in the galaxy or rebel against it. It wasn't long before the first sign of open conflict appeared. A small group of rogue Viri ships, acting on their own, attacked a human convoy transporting supplies to a newly established colony. The Viri made it clear that this was not an official action, but the message was clear. Humanity's defiance would not be tolerated. Orin and his team scrambled to respond. The time for diplomacy had ended. It was clear that humanity's decision to chart its own course had triggered a response from the Viri. The rogue ships were only a taste of what could be coming. The human fleet quickly mobilized, ready to protect their people and defend their independence. The battle that followed was swift and intense. The humans had grown stronger, their fleet faster and more efficient with the help of the Viri's technology, but they were still outmatched by the sheer power of the Viri's advanced weapons. The humans fought with everything they had, determined to show that they were not afraid, that they were not simply going to bow down to the Viri's might. And then, just when it seemed like the battle would end in defeat, a surprise twist occurred. The Viri ships that had attacked humanity were quickly surrounded, not by the human fleet, but by a group of unexpected allies, the very factions humanity had been reaching out to. These groups, once enemies of the Viri, had come to humanity's aid. The message was clear. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and humanity was at the center of it. The time for subservience was over. The Viri had underestimated the resilience of humanity and the power of their new alliances. The new planet was beautiful, its blue skies and green landscapes a stark contrast to the cold, endless void of space that had been their home for so long. For the first time in months, humanity felt a sense of hope, a sense of purpose. They were no longer just surviving. They were rebuilding, creating something new, something that could last. The initial landing was only the beginning. There was much work to be done. The ships that had carried them to this distant world were not built to last forever. They were meant for the journey, not for settling. Yet, despite their limitations, they had served their purpose. The human fleet was scattered across the planet, each ship acting as a temporary base, a place to start fresh. But soon, the people knew they had to move beyond the ships. The first task was to establish a permanent settlement. The crew worked together, using the knowledge they had to design new structures, build homes, and create farms. They had learned a lot during their time on Earth, how to harness the power of the sun, how to grow food, how to use the land around them. They knew it would take time, but they were ready. Every human on that planet had a role to play. Scientists, engineers, farmers, doctors, all of them came together, working long hours to make the planet a home. The planet was rich in resources. Metal ores, rare minerals, and even fresh water were plentiful. The people set up mining operations, extracting what they needed to build the infrastructure they would rely on. They built roads, bridges, and power plants. They constructed factories to process the raw materials they mined and turned them into tools, machinery, and parts that would help them grow. It was like starting from scratch, but the people had learned from their past mistakes. They weren't going to repeat the same mistakes that had led them to exile. They were determined to make this work. One of the first breakthroughs was the development of a new energy source. The planet's unique combination of solar and geothermal energy allowed them to create a sustainable power grid that didn't rely on fossil fuels. This was a game changer. With an endless supply of energy, they could power their cities, run factories, and even start building advanced technologies. It was as if they were starting a new golden age, and this time, they would not be held back by the limitations of their old world. But even with all the progress, there were challenges. The planet's weather was unpredictable. Storms would rise suddenly, and the planet's soil, while rich, was also filled with strange minerals that made farming difficult at times. Yet the humans adapted. They developed new methods of farming, using advanced techniques to grow crops that would survive in the harsh conditions. They created greenhouses, modified the soil, and worked together to make sure everyone had enough to eat. As the months passed, the population grew. The settlement expanded, and soon, the first cities began to rise. The people built tall structures, similar to the ones they had left behind on Earth. They designed streets lined with trees, parks where families could relax, and markets where people could trade goods. Life began to feel normal again. And yet it was different. It was better. They had learned to appreciate what they had, to work together for the common good. One of the most important aspects of rebuilding was education. The humans knew that the only way to continue advancing was to pass on their knowledge. They set up schools, universities, and research centers where the next generation could learn the lessons of the past and the innovations of the future. They didn't want to repeat the mistakes that had led to their downfall. They wanted to build a civilization that was better, more peaceful, and more united than before. But even as they rebuilt, there was a nagging thought in the back of their minds. They had no idea if the galaxy was watching. They had no way of knowing if the Council would ever come for them again. They didn't even know if other civilizations existed out there. Yet there was something in the air, something that told them they were on the right path. They were stronger than they had ever been before, and they had something no one could take away: hope. The people knew they had to be ready. They couldn't afford to be caught off guard again. As they worked tirelessly to rebuild their society, they also began to prepare for the future. They built ships that were faster, more powerful, and more advanced than anything they had ever created. They developed technologies that would help them explore the stars once again. They didn't know what awaited them out there, but they were determined to face it head-on. Humanity had once been the masters of their world. Earth was a planet teeming with life, vibrant cities, and remarkable achievements. From towering skyscrapers to space stations orbiting above, humans had reached for the stars, proving they were capable of greatness. But all of it came crashing down, not by the force of nature or a great disaster, but by the decisions of the very beings they once hoped to join. The Galactic Council had been watching humanity for centuries, observing their rise and fall with growing unease. The Council, made up of ancient and wise species, was tasked with maintaining peace in the galaxy. They had seen what humanity was capable of, expanding their reach, developing new technologies at a rapid pace, and perhaps most worrying of all, their ability to adapt to any challenge thrown at them. Humanity had proven to be a force of nature, one that could not easily be controlled. It was their greatest strength, but it also became their greatest weakness. A meeting was called. A decision was made. The leaders of the council had determined that humanity was simply too unpredictable, too dangerous. They feared that, left unchecked, humanity would one day threaten the balance of the entire galaxy. The council saw them as a rising tide, one that would engulf all in its path, regardless of who or what got in the way. And so, in one fateful decision, Earth was abandoned. Humanity was exiled from the stars they had so desperately longed to be a part of. The council declared that the human race would no longer be allowed to roam the galaxy. Earth would remain, but no longer would humanity be allowed to join the intergalactic community. They were cast out. The news struck humanity like a blow to the heart. For years, they had sent messages, sought allies, and worked towards peace. The dream of becoming part of the greater galactic family seemed within reach. They had worked hard, developed technology that could rival even the most advanced species, and offered peace to every star system they encountered. Yet, it wasn't enough. The fear of what they could become overshadowed everything else. As the Council's decision spread, many humans were filled with shock, disbelief, and anger. They didn't understand. They couldn't believe that the galaxy they had looked up to, the one they had wanted to be a part of, would cast them aside so easily. There were protests, riots in the streets, and leaders who called for action. But it was all in vain. The decision had been made. The humans were to leave, never to return. With their backs against the wall, humanity's leaders made a choice. They would not go down without a fight. They would not let this be their end. They gathered their resources, took what they could from the Earth they had always known, and built ships that would carry them beyond the stars. They didn't know where they were headed or what awaited them. All they knew was that they would not die in silence. On the day they left, Earth's skies were filled with the sights of hundreds of ships lifting off, the final remnants of humanity's great dream of becoming one with the stars. The planet they had called home seemed so small from the ships, fading into the distance. There was no going back now. For the first time, humanity was completely alone. The stars that had once seemed so close, so promising, now felt distant and cold. They were no longer a part of the galaxy's grand design, but they were not broken. No, humanity was not a species that would simply fade away. They were survivors, and they would make a new path for themselves. As they ventured into the unknown, the fleet of human ships encountered nothing but silence. The vastness of space stretched out before them, an endless ocean of darkness. It was both beautiful and terrifying. With no destination in mind, they simply moved forward, driven by the hope that there was something, anything, beyond the stars to discover. It wasn't the future they had imagined, but it was theirs to shape. And so, humanity embarked on their journey. They were exiled, but they were not defeated. The galaxy may have turned its back on them, but they would not give up. They would find a way to survive, to rebuild, and one day, to prove that they were more than what the Council had feared. The story of humanity was far from over. The humans quickly formed a tight group, their minds focused on the task ahead. They knew they were outmatched in terms of raw power. The Vuri had far more advanced technology, and their challengers were no ordinary beings. But humanity had something else: their creativity, their adaptability, and their willingness to work together. Commander Orin, who had seen many battles, took charge. "Stay together," he instructed. use the environment to our advantage. We may not have the firepower they do, but we have something they don't: our unity. The first challenger, a massive creature with 6 arms and a body covered in sharp armor, charged toward them. It was faster than anything the humans had encountered before, its speed almost unnatural. But the humans reacted quickly, using their teamwork and tactics to stay one step ahead. They dodged its blows, worked in sync to outmaneuver it, and finally managed to subdue the beast using a clever trap. It was only the beginning. One by one, the humans faced more challenges: creatures that could manipulate gravity, beings that could shift between dimensions, and others that fought with a fierce, almost primal intelligence. Each test pushed the humans to their limits, forcing them to rely not just on their technology, but on their instincts, their intelligence, and their strength of will. As they fought, the humans began to realize something. This trial wasn't just about physical combat. It was about proving their worth as individuals and as a species. Each decision they made, each moment they hesitated or chose a different path, was being watched. The Vuri were not interested in just seeing who could win a fight. They wanted to see how humanity would handle adversity, how they would navigate the complexities of the galaxy. The final challenge came in the form of a strange puzzle, a test of diplomacy and strategy. A group of Vuri challengers stood before them, their expressions unreadable. The humans had to negotiate, not with force, but with words. The challenge was to find a solution to a conflict that had plagued the Vuri for centuries, one that had divided their people. The humans had no knowledge of the Vuri's history, but they used their skills in communication and diplomacy to broker a peace, finding common ground where none had existed before. When the last challenge was over, the arena fell silent. The humans stood together, battered but unbroken. They had passed the trial, not just through strength, but through their ability to think, to adapt, and to unite in the face of overwhelming odds. Arkal appeared before them, a rare smile crossing his face. "You have proven yourselves," he said. "You have shown that you are worthy. The alliance is yours." The humans, exhausted but proud, looked at each other. They had passed the test, but they knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and their place within it was still uncertain. But now, they were no longer alone. They had earned the respect of the Vuri, and that respect would carry them forward into the unknown future. Humanity had earned their place among the stars. The Vuri, impressed by their strength, resilience, and unity, welcomed them into their galactic network. The humans now stood side by side with beings far more advanced than themselves, learning their ways and discovering a universe beyond their imagination. It was a dream come true, at least, that's how it seemed on the surface. In the months that followed their victory in the trial, humanity flourished. New technologies flowed into their hands, each one more advanced than the last. The Vuri shared their knowledge of space travel, energy manipulation, and even medical breakthroughs that could cure diseases humans had struggled with for centuries. Humanity's colonies began to thrive as they adapted to the new possibilities that lay before them. But there was a price that had not been made clear at the start. At first, it was small things: requests for resources, strategic positions for the Vuri ships to dock, and minor assistance in galactic affairs. The humans were told that this was part of their new role in the galaxy, and they agreed without hesitation. They had already proven their worth. Why not prove their loyalty as well? However, as the months went on, the demands grew more significant. The Vuri asked humanity to send their fleet to assist in skirmishes across the galaxy, fighting for causes that were not always clear. At first, humanity complied, eager to maintain their newfound place in the galaxy. But the battles were far from easy. They fought against unknown alien forces, defending interests that seemed distant and abstract. There were no promises of reward or protection, only the pressure to serve the greater good, as the Vuri put it. After humanity was cast out, there was no time for celebration. The journey had just begun, and there was no way to know what lay ahead. The exiled fleet of human ships drifted into the vast emptiness of space, each vessel carrying the hopes and fears of a people who had once thought they would be a part of something greater. Now, they were alone, lost among the stars. The silence in the fleet was deafening. No one spoke much. The hum of the engines, the occasional blip of the communication systems, and the soft creaks of metal were the only sounds that broke the quiet. Some of the crew members stared out at the endless stretch of dark space, their eyes reflecting the same uncertainty that gripped their hearts. The galaxy, which had once seemed so full of possibilities, now felt like a cold, distant void. Yet, amidst all the uncertainty, there was something else, something unspoken. Hope. Humanity had faced adversity before. They had built great cities, advanced technologies, and sent men to the moon. They had survived wars, disasters, and challenges that would have broken any other species. Exiled or not, they were survivors. And deep down, they knew that if anyone could make it in the unknown, it was them. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the fleet pressed forward. They had no map, no guidance, just the vast emptiness of space ahead of them. But they were not without resources. Despite the Council's decision to exile them, humanity had not gone unprepared. Their ships were equipped with the latest technology, self-sustaining engines, and enough resources to last for years. They had food, water, and energy, everything they needed to survive. However, surviving was not the same as thriving. They could not simply drift forever. They needed to find a new home, a place to rebuild, to reclaim what they had lost. But where? There were no friendly stars to guide them, no known civilizations waiting to welcome them back. The great expanse of space was a mystery, a puzzle with no clear solution. Then, one day, something happened that would change everything. It began with a signal. At first, it was a faint whisper, a blip in the communication systems. The crew of one of the ships dismissed it as background noise, a random fluctuation in the endless sea of space. But then it came again, and again, and again. A signal, clear and repetitive, like a beacon calling out to them. They didn't know where it was coming from or what it meant, but it was enough. For the first time since they left Earth, the humans had something to chase. It was a sign that they were not alone, that there was something, or someone, out there. The fleet changed course, following the signal through the unknown. The journey was not easy. The vastness of space was full of dangers, cosmic radiation, asteroid fields, and the constant threat of ship malfunctions. But the hope that they weren't alone pushed them forward. It was the first real thing that had driven them since their exile, and it gave them a reason to keep going. Days turned into weeks again, but this time there was no silence, no stillness. The fleet was alive with purpose. Crew members worked together, repairing ships, gathering data, and scanning for any other signals that could lead them to answers. The signal was growing stronger. They were getting closer. Then, on the 38th day of their journey, they found it. A planet. Not just any planet, but one that looked like it could be habitable. A world with oceans, mountains, and breathable air. It wasn't Earth, but it was the closest thing they had seen in months. The fleet made preparations to land, eager to set foot on solid ground again. When the first human ship touched down on the new world, it was a moment of both wonder and fear. The ground beneath their feet was soft, the air fresh, and the sky clear. They were standing on an alien world, but it felt like home. The planet was rich in resources, enough to sustain them for generations to come. It was not perfect, but it was a new beginning. A chance to rebuild, to create something stronger than before. And so, humanity began again. They built cities, mined resources, and began to understand the world around them. The journey into the unknown had led them here, to this new world, this new life. They were not yet out of danger, and they knew that the galaxy was still watching. But for the first time since their exile, they could finally see a future ahead of them. The silence of space was replaced with the sounds of industry, of people working together. Humanity was no longer lost. They had found a place to call their own, a place to grow. And as they looked up at the stars, they knew that their journey had only just begun. The Vuri leader's eyes narrowed. Power, Commander. You will gain knowledge, resources, and the protection of our fleet. But in return, you will serve us when the time comes. We do not give without expecting something in return. We do not offer this alliance out of charity. The words were harsh, but not unexpected. Humanity had always known that power came at a cost. They had fought for their survival, and now they would fight for their place in the galaxy. But what would that cost them in the end? As the human fleet neared the Vuri homeworld, the weight of the decision grew heavier. The promise of advanced technology, of protection from the dangers of the galaxy, was incredibly tempting. But the price of that protection was unknown. What would they be asked to do? Would they be forced to fight wars that weren't their own? Would they be asked to bend to the will of the Vuri, or would they be allowed to maintain their freedom? The Vuri homeworld was as imposing as their fleet, a planet covered in towering cities and complex structures. The humans marveled at the advanced technology, the sprawling cities that seemed to stretch for miles, the energy fields that powered entire metropolises. But the beauty of the world was overshadowed by the realization that this was only the beginning. The Vuri were watching closely, waiting to see how humanity would respond to their terms. In the grand hall of the Vuri Council, the humans stood before their new allies, knowing that this moment would determine the future of their people. The decision to accept the alliance had been made, but the true cost of that decision was still unknown. What would they be asked to give up? What sacrifices would they have to make? And more importantly, would humanity be able to live with the price of power? The Vuri homeworld was like nothing humanity had ever seen. Towering cities of metal and glass reached into the sky, their designs both alien and magnificent. Energy beams flowed between massive structures, lighting up the dark skies in hues of blue and green. The humans stood on the surface of the planet, their eyes wide with awe, yet there was an unease in their hearts. This world, with all its wonder, was a reminder of the price they had agreed to pay. The Vuri had made their expectations clear. The alliance, while offering great rewards, came with certain obligations. They would provide humanity with advanced technology, protection, and resources, but there was a catch. They expected humanity to prove their loyalty, to show that they were truly worthy of being part of the Vuri's galactic network. It was not just a matter of words. The Vuri had devised a trial, a test that humanity would have to undergo before the alliance could be fully formalized. This was not a simple ceremony or a diplomatic gesture. The test would measure humanity's strength, their resolve, and their willingness to serve the greater good of the galaxy. The Vuri made it clear that only those who could prove themselves would be accepted. Commander Orin, along with several of humanity's top leaders, stood in the grand chamber of the Vuri Council, awaiting the trial's beginning. The council room was vast, its walls shimmering with strange lights. In the center stood a large platform, surrounded by glowing symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. Arkal, the Vuri leader, watched them with calculating eyes. "You've come far," Arkal said, his voice deep and resonant. "But you have not yet earned your place among the stars. You must prove that you are ready. This trial will test not only your skills but your loyalty. If you pass, you will join us. If you fail," his voice trailed off, leaving the threat hanging in the air. The humans nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. They had no choice but to face the test head-on. There was no turning back now. The trial began without warning. The lights around them flashed, and the symbols on the platform glowed brighter. A sudden surge of energy filled the air, and the humans found themselves transported to another place. An arena, vast and open, with towering walls that seemed to stretch into infinity. Strange creatures, some humanoid, some entirely alien in appearance, stood at various points within the arena. They were the Vuri's challengers, and they were ready to fight. "This is your trial," Arkal's voice echoed in the humans' minds. "Defeat the challengers, and you will prove your strength. But be warned, this will test more than just your physical ability. Your decisions, your resolve, will be just as important. If you falter, you will fail." And so the human race thrived. They built, they grew, and they flourished. They had lost their place in the galaxy, but they had found a new one, a place where they could be free, where they could start over and do things right. The galaxy had abandoned them, but humanity was not a species that would stay down for long. They were ready to rise again. Years passed since humanity had found their new home. The small colony they had built had grown into a thriving, bustling world of innovation and progress. The people had rebuilt their cities, their farms, and their industries. Their technology had advanced in ways they had never imagined possible. What they had once thought of as an exile had become a new beginning, one filled with hope, growth, and endless potential. But even as they prospered, there were whispers in the back of their minds. The galaxy was vast, and despite their advances, humanity was still alone in it. They didn't know if other species still existed or if anyone was out there watching them. Were they safe? Had the Galactic Council forgotten them? Or would their past eventually catch up to them? The answer came sooner than they expected. One evening, as the sun set on the newly rebuilt capital, the people of humanity's new world were startled by a series of strange signals. They were faint at first, barely noticeable, but soon they grew stronger. It was a pattern, a signal coming from deep within the stars. It wasn't human, it was alien. Panic spread through the city as officials scrambled to decode the message. They had no idea what the signals meant, but they knew they had to investigate. A fleet of ships was sent out to trace the signal, their advanced sensors scanning the vast stretches of space around them. For days, there was no response. Then, as they neared a distant star system, the sensors began to pick up something new, something big. Humanity had never seen anything like it before. A massive fleet of alien ships, far larger than their own, was waiting in the dark void, hovering just outside their reach. These ships weren't like the Council's, sleek and elegant. They were crude but powerful, armed with weapons that hummed with energy and machines that looked far more dangerous than anything humanity had ever encountered. The alien fleet sent a message, though the words were strange and the language incomprehensible. Humanity's best translators worked tirelessly to understand the meaning behind the message. After hours of effort, they finally pieced it together. The message was not an offer of peace, but a warning. The aliens were coming, and they were not friendly. Fear spread quickly through humanity's colonies. The people had worked so hard to rebuild, to make this new home theirs, and now it seemed that everything they had worked for could be taken away in an instant. The question on everyone's mind was the same. Who were these aliens, and what did they want? The answer came when the first wave of alien ships arrived at the colony's outer defense perimeter. The humans watched in silence as the ships descended from the stars, their weapons aimed at the planet. They were here to conquer, to take what humanity had built, and they were prepared to destroy anything in their path. The humans had no choice but to prepare for battle. They had weapons, yes, but they were still a fledgling civilization. Their ships were faster and more advanced than anything they had created on Earth, but they were not prepared for an all-out war. They didn't know how powerful these alien ships were or how many forces they had at their disposal. But there was one thing the humans had learned in their years of exile. They were survivors. They would not let this new world slip away from them. They would fight. The battle that ensued was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The alien ships were powerful, their weapons devastating, but the humans were quick and resourceful. They used their advanced technology to their advantage, outmaneuvering the aliens in ways they hadn't expected. Ships flew through space at impossible speeds, dodging blasts, returning fire with lasers and missiles of their own. The battle raged for hours, the fate of humanity's new world hanging in the balance. Then, just when it seemed the humans might be overwhelmed, something unexpected happened. The aliens, who had been relentless in their attack, suddenly hesitated. Their ships slowed, their weapons powered down. Confusion swept through the alien ranks, and for a brief moment, humanity had a chance. A message came through, this time from the leader of the alien fleet. The words were clear, and this time, there was no mistaking the meaning. The aliens were not here to destroy humanity. They had come to test them, to see if they were worthy of the galaxy's attention. They had been watching humanity for years, studying them from the shadows. And now, they had come to see if humanity could defend itself. The leader of the alien fleet explained that they were part of a larger group, one that had been searching for civilizations that could prove their strength. Humanity, it seemed, had passed the test. The aliens had come not to conquer, but to offer an alliance. They had watched humanity rise from the ashes, and now they saw potential in them. The humans were left stunned. After everything they had gone through, after being exiled from the stars and forgotten by the galaxy, they had finally been noticed. The galaxy was not as empty as they had once feared. There were others out there, watching, waiting. And now, humanity had a chance to join them. But would they accept this offer? Would they trust these strange, powerful beings? The decision would not come easily, but it would mark the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. The galaxy, once distant and cold, was now full of possibilities, and humanity was ready to face whatever came next. The aliens' offer of alliance was like a dream come true. For years, humanity had longed for a chance to prove itself to the galaxy, to show that they were capable of more than just surviving in isolation. But now that the opportunity was right in front of them, the people felt a heavy weight settle over them. This wasn't just a simple invitation. It was a test, and the stakes were higher than ever. In the days following the battle, the humans had to make a decision. The alien fleet had left their planet for the time being, promising to return when humanity was ready. The humans, however, were not so sure they were ready. They had just fought for their lives, for their new home, and they knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was not a safe place, and if they accepted the alliance, they might be pulled into a much larger conflict. The leaders of the human colony gathered in a high council meeting, discussing the decision. There were many voices in the room, each one filled with a mixture of excitement and doubt. Some saw the alien offer as a chance to expand, to become a part of something greater than themselves. Others feared that the galaxy might come with its own set of rules, and those rules might not be in humanity's favor. "We can't ignore the opportunity," said Commander Orin, a veteran of the recent battle. "They tested us. We passed. If we reject them, we'll be nothing more than outcasts again, alone in the void. We've already been cast aside once. Do we really want to go through that again?" But not everyone agreed. "What do we really know about these aliens?" questioned Dr. Maya, the colony's leading scientist. "They may say they're offering an alliance, but we don't know their true motives. What if this is a trap? What if we're just pawns in their game?" The debate raged for hours, but in the end, it was clear that humanity couldn't afford to make a decision lightly. The possibility of becoming part of something larger, of joining a galactic network, was tempting. But what would that mean for their way of life? Would they have to follow laws that conflicted with their values? Would they lose the freedom they had worked so hard to gain? In the end, the decision was made. Humanity would accept the alien offer, but they would do so cautiously, with eyes wide open. They would not let their guard down, not until they truly understood what these aliens wanted from them. There was too much at risk, too much to lose. The fleet gathered once more, this time to prepare for the next phase of their journey. They had to travel to the alien homeworld, a place that was distant and unknown. It would take months to reach, but there was no turning back now. The humans had chosen their path, and they would face whatever challenges awaited them head-on. During the journey, the humans learned more about their potential new allies. The aliens, known as the Vuri, were an ancient race, far older than humanity. They had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and they held knowledge and technology far beyond anything the humans had ever imagined. The Vuri were a proud people, but they were also pragmatic. They didn't offer alliances lightly, and they made it clear that any relationship with them would come at a price. "What is the price?" asked Commander Orin when he met with the Vuri leader, a tall and imposing figure named Arkal. The galaxy had changed forever. The battle with the rogue Vuri ships had been a turning point, not just for humanity, but for the balance of power across the stars. The unexpected arrival of their new allies had caught the Vuri off guard, and the humans had been able to hold their ground, sending a clear message that they would not be pushed around. The galaxy was no longer a place of one dominant power. It was a place where new alliances, new forces, and new ideas were emerging. Commander Orin stood on the command bridge of the flagship, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so distant and unreachable. The view was breathtaking, but now it represented something different. The humans had earned their place in this vast galaxy. They were no longer the exiled species they once were, cast aside and forgotten. Now, they were a force to be reckoned with. The battle with the rogue Vuri ships had ended in a hard-won victory, but it was more than just a military success. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Humanity had made a statement, and their new allies had made sure that message was heard. The Vuri, once so confident in their superiority, had been forced to reconsider their approach. As Orin stood at the helm, Dr. Maya approached, her expression thoughtful. "We did it," she said quietly. "We've shown them that we're not just a tool to be used. We've earned their respect." Orin nodded, but he knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was still full of unknowns. There were countless threats, countless factions, and countless dangers that humanity had yet to face. But they had proven something to themselves. They had the strength, the intelligence, and the unity to stand on their own. "We've made our stand," Orin said, his voice steady. "But we can't afford to let our guard down. The Vuri will regroup, and others may see us as a threat. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." Maya looked at him, her eyes shining with determination. "We will be ready. We've already shown that we can adapt, that we can overcome whatever challenges are thrown our way. Humanity has always been resilient. This is just another chapter in our story." The humans had made their peace with the Vuri, but the alliance was no longer one-sided. They were no longer the passive partners, forced to serve at the Vuri's command. Humanity had made it clear that they would not simply follow orders. They would forge their own path, with their own goals and their own future. But this didn't mean war. Orin and the others were determined to avoid further conflict with the Vuri if they could. They had no interest in becoming enemies. Instead, they sought a future where both species could coexist and share knowledge, but on equal terms. The humans had already begun diplomatic talks with other factions, and it wasn't long before the first real signs of peace emerged. The galaxy was starting to change, and humanity had a role in shaping that change. Back on Earth, the news of humanity's success had spread like wildfire. People cheered, filled with pride. They had watched their species rise from the ashes of exile, and now they were a part of something much bigger. They weren't just citizens of Earth anymore. They were citizens of the galaxy. But even as the celebrations began, there was an underlying realization. The peace humanity had fought for was fragile. The galaxy was full of ancient powers, complex politics, and dangerous unknowns. Humanity would need to stay vigilant. They had earned their place, but they would need to continue proving their worth. Orin understood that more than anyone, as much as he had seen humanity's potential, he knew there were still many challenges ahead. The alliances they had forged were strong, but there were many forces in the galaxy that didn't play by the same rules. Some would try to take advantage of humanity's rise, while others might see it as a threat to their own power. Humanity was still young in the grand scheme of things. They had made incredible strides, but the road ahead would not be easy. The galaxy was vast, and their place in it was still being written. And yet, as Orin looked out at the stars, he felt a sense of hope. Humanity had come so far from the brink of extinction to standing among the great powers of the galaxy. They had proven that even when cast aside, even when abandoned, they could rise up and fight for their place in the universe. As the ship soared through the stars, Commander Orin turned to his crew. "We've made history, but our story is far from over. This galaxy is ours to shape, and we will make it better for all of us." The crew nodded, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity was no longer exiled. They had found their place in the stars, and they were here to stay. Commander Orin and the other leaders began to notice a troubling trend. The more humanity gave, the more the Vuri expected. The humans' fleet was stretched thin, and their resources were slowly being drained. More and more, they were being asked to participate in conflicts that had little to do with their survival. These were wars between distant powers, ones that didn't affect humanity's well-being but were vital to the Vuri's strategic goals. One evening, Commander Orin sat in his quarters, looking over the latest mission orders. He rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of responsibility press down on him. The orders were clear: another mission to a distant sector of the galaxy to assist the Vuri in quelling a rebellion on a remote planet. The Vuri had decided that the rebellion threatened their control over the sector and wanted it crushed. The humans were to be the vanguard, leading the charge. "This isn't what we signed up for," Orin muttered to himself. He stared out of the window at the stars, their cold light shining in the distance. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, yes, but at what cost? The demands of the Vuri were beginning to feel like chains. The more they contributed, the more they were drawn into the conflicts of others. Humanity had been promised protection, a place in the galaxy, but now they were finding themselves in a position where they were losing their autonomy. Every battle they fought, every ship they sent, felt like another step away from the freedom they had fought so hard to gain. In the council chamber, Orin stood before the gathered leaders, their faces grave. The human fleet had returned from another mission, and the losses were mounting. Lives were being lost, ships destroyed, and resources drained. And for what? The rebellion had been quelled, but the cost was steep. The Vuri had promised that their aid would bring peace to the galaxy, but all it seemed to bring was more conflict. "We can't keep doing this," Orin said, his voice firm. "We've proven ourselves. We've fought for the Vuri, we've sacrificed, and now it's time we stand up for ourselves. If we keep going down this path, we risk losing everything we've gained. We need to remind the Vuri that we're not their soldiers. We're allies, not tools." Dr. Maya, the colony scientist, nodded in agreement. "The Vuri may be powerful, but they are not invincible. If we let them continue to use us like this, we'll become nothing more than pawns in their game. We have to find a way to balance this alliance, to make sure we don't lose who we are in the process." Orin looked around the room. His people had come a long way. They had been exiled from the stars, abandoned by the very galaxy they had once been a part of. Now they had been offered a place in that same galaxy. But the question remained, was the price of that place too high? "I'm not saying we should abandon the Vuri," Orin continued, "but we need to be careful. We need to be strategic. We can't let them control our every move. We must fight for our own future, not just theirs." The council sat in silence, the weight of Orin's words hanging in the air. The humans had come so far, and now they stood at a crossroads. The alliance with the Vuri had brought them prosperity and protection, but it had also brought them danger and control. It was a double-edged sword, and humanity had to decide how to wield it. As the meeting adjourned, Orin looked out once more at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of opportunities, but it was also full of dangers. They had fought for their survival once. Now, they would fight for their freedom. The weight of the decision pressed heavily on humanity's shoulders. Commander Orin and the leaders of the colony had made their stand. They would no longer be the Vuri's pawns. They would continue to honor their alliance, but they would do so on their own terms. It was time for humanity to reclaim its freedom. In the days following their bold decision, the humans faced a wave of opposition from their new allies. The Vuri, though impressed by humanity's strength in battle, saw their refusal to blindly follow orders as a challenge to their authority. They made it clear that there would be consequences for defying their will. There were whispers in the halls of the Human Council about the Vuri's power, their ability to shape entire star systems with their advanced technology. Some feared that humanity had overstepped its bounds. Others were determined to stand firm. For now, the tension between the two sides remained just beneath the surface, simmering but not boiling over. The humans knew they had to be careful. They had chosen their path, but the road ahead was uncertain. The Vuri had given them access to technology that could change the course of history. But the price was steep, and humanity was beginning to realize the true cost of that power.